Hello and welcome to the Making It podcast. We are back for episode 45, which means I think there's another 6 weeks till the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken. It is great to be back. 45 episodes in. What an amazing year it has been. Lots of interesting stuff going on. If this is your first Making It podcast episode, which it might be, you never know. We've got to give you a shout out. Welcome to the club. This is not an exclusive club. Anyone can join it. But if you do join it, you're cool as. So you don't really want to miss out on the opportunity, do you? Anyway, welcome back, Dan. It's good to have you back, my friend. Rocking the Forest shirt after a lovely 3-1 win against Leeds. Sorry, I had to. Shout out Nigel, by the way, because Leeds are crap, mate. Dan, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, bro. I'm excited to be back on another episode with you, man. A few things to talk about. You know what? This is just literally something that just came straight to my mind as you were talking just then. And I think about this podcast, I think about some of the videos I do on my Instagram. And someone said to me the other day that I should start putting a bit more research into the videos because then there's a bit more bit of evidence for what I'm saying, and it's not just a feel good video or I'm just saying something from what's come to my mind. But it's quite interesting because I know with this podcast, me and you, we've spoke about trying to do things from the outside world and bringing it into the podcast. And I remember Judy saying to begin with when she was first listening to the podcast, she wondered why we spoke so much about just our journeys, but it's funny how we've naturally always just gone back to that, and I really enjoy doing that. I think it's great, and I think there are people who listen who enjoy listening to our journeys because it can relate to them, and they enjoy seeing how open we are about certain things. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, whether it's the same sort of journey or not. There's the same principles there, and it made me think sometimes. I think it is important to put research into things, of course, 100%, and it's something I could do a bit more. But say with my Instagram videos, sometimes I like just picking up the phone and just saying what's coming to my mind. Like I don't feel like there needs to be something to back it up all the time. And with our podcast, I think it is quite cool that each week we can just come on and talk about our journeys. And there'll be times where we back things up with research or evidence, but most of the time it's just our journey and how we feel. And I guess my question is, how much in life should we navigate just doing things based off how we feel, or applying theory and research to those things?
Well, like I always say, Dan, life is all about balance. So you should navigate the world with how you feel all the time, I think. But you should measure certain metrics as well, maybe along that journey. I.e., if you feel like you should go and jump in that dirty pool of water, you should probably weigh up whether it's going to have brain-eating like amoeba in it or, like bacteria. You can't always lead with your feelings in the fact that there is dangerous things and there's obviously things that you shouldn't do in life. But who are we if we don't lead with our own feelings? Whose feelings do we lead with? And this is an interesting point because there was a really good podcast that I was recommended to my boss by my boss, Doctor by sorry. It's
Okay.
Andrew Schultz. Andrew Schultz and Dr. K, and I was recommended it by Dej, my boss. I was going to call him Dr. Dej then. Um, but it was really interesting because it was all about ego. And I'm not going to spoil the podcast because you should go and listen to it. And I'll repeat it again. It's Dr. K, who's like a leading psychologist, and then Andrew Schultz, who's an American comedian. And it was all about ego. So it kind of ties in, like, if you're not going to lead with your own feelings, whose feelings are you leading with? If you are leading with your own feelings, and it's kind of hard to word this, but you're not truly leading with your own, you're leading for someone else's. What's the
Yeah.
point in living your life? So how much of what we do is down to ego, right? How, do you put on a certain type of clothes because you want to impress someone? Do you not run for the bus because you think someone's going to view you in a certain way? These things. And that sounds like something ridiculous, by the way, but I know people 100% who will not run for a bus, run for a train, run for a tram. They would rather be late for the sake of someone on the bus seeing them and thinking, what an idiot this guy is. But back to your original question, though, Dan. Yeah, I think leading with your feelings, but always having a bit of research and a bit of evidence to back up things you do is really important, because it's like anything, Dan. I think that the raw idea of something sounds great, but when you start adding those kind of components of research and and just things you've learned about it, the more interesting it is. And if you're talking to someone, Dan, if I just said to you, the sky's blue, you're probably going to believe me, and that's it. But if I'm in a TED talk and I'm talking about why the sky's blue, do you really think that they're going to, all the academics and the people listening going, I want to know why the sky's blue? Do you really think they're going to accept me just going, the sky's blue? You need that backing, you need that depth. That's what I'm saying. You need the depth. So that's my kind of thoughts on that. I just think it's always good to have depth when it comes to your feelings, and also to understand why you feel and what you want to do with that.
What do you think about ego? Because I think you can get a lot of people in life who obviously people say are arrogant. And I heard someone say the other day, like they believe you should be arrogant. And the way I kind of view it is like I think there are people in life who have an ego, and well, sorry, we all when you actually think about it properly, we all have an ego. But there are people with that ego who they want to put it in everyone's faces, and I'm the shit basically, and no one else is anything else, and I'm above everyone. That's not a that's for me. That's what arrogance is. Whereas someone who's simply just confident in their own abilities, I don't believe is arrogant. I believe they're just confident.
Hmm.
Now, I think it's just about judging it because for me, I personally feel like it's good to be humble on the outside. So you don't feel like you need to show yourself off. You don't need to put yourself in other people's faces and prove yourself all the time. But on the inside, you're telling yourself, "I'm the shit. Like I'm good at this stuff, and like I feel I can do this, and I feel there's this area of my potential I can reach." And you're bigging yourself up on the inside, but you don't do it on the out. And I think it's a good balance to have, and it's something I like to use because I think if you're constantly bigging yourself up all the time in front of other people, it's draining for other people, but it's also like people don't need to hear that, and people don't want to hear someone else thinking they're cool all the time. And I just think it's have that sort of energy on the inside and then be humble on the outside. But when it comes to ego and arrogance, how do you navigate that?
Well, first of all, everyone's got an ego. There's not a single person in this world that doesn't have an ego. And if they say, I've not got an ego, I'm good, that's ego. And it's really interesting because a lot of the time and it was interesting hearing this podcast because they were like, one guy was like, I've got, my ego is a bit of an issue. So I'm going to become a monk. I'm going to go and be a monk. And they were asking him, why would you want to be a monk? And it all came down to he wanted other people to perceive him as not having an ego. That is ego in itself, right? And ego also doesn't have to be kind of like an outgoing, I'm the bollocks kind of thing. It can also be something as like that's self-deprecating. Like your ego can also be like, oh, I'm worthless, I'm nothing, I'm an arsehole, because it's involving I am. It's all about me with anything. So ego doesn't have to work for you or against you. It can be both. And I think that the thing with ego is that it's good to have one because it can give you a bit of confidence. There are times when you need to be relaxed, composed, and not give away any signs of pressure, any signs of nerves or anxiety, because it gives you a better chance of getting something, right? I.e., a job. If you turn up to a job interview sweating, like, oh, shaking like this, and oh, God, how are you? Rubbish handshake and all that kind of crap, the interview person's probably going to be thinking, what's wrong with this guy? Like, what's his issue? And then they're also going to see the next person come in, chilled out, like, hey, up, how you doing? You're all right. Sitting with a good posture, and they're going to be like, you're the kind of person I want working for me because you're not going to panic. If you're panicking in a situation where you're just sitting down doing an interview with me, how the hell are we expecting you to deal with 100 people coming up to the bar wanting drinks? These kinds of things. So it's about how you manage it. And again, it comes down to balance, because if you're someone that has a big ego, but you can manage it and it can be balanced, and because the thing is, ego is not a bad thing. We perceive ego as arrogance, and it's not that. ego is not arrogance. Ego is it's an embodiment of you, right? And how you present yourself, that's up to you. So I think that people shouldn't shy away from the fact that they've got an ego. I think they should just remember the power of one, and also the importance of other people in their life. We wouldn't be something without someone. Okay, if you go down to a biological level, you say your parents, right? I don't want to talk too much about that, to be honest. But there's like, your uni thing, Dan. There'll be someone that through that give you an opportunity, whether that's Michael or Derek or what one of the guys there. I know for a fact that with my commentary stuff, I give a lot of credit to Steve, because Steve has changed my life. Steve Colby, giving me the opportunity that I didn't know I needed, at the time. So it's all about managing it. But Dan, let's go on to the football topic, because obviously not only did Forest win, which of course makes me very happy, and I'm probably going to have a better day today because of it. I understand that you were up north in Burnley doing a very interesting and cool project that I want to hear a bit more about, bro. So tell me a little bit more about the Hive.
Yeah, so obviously last episode I spoke about the Insight Day and how that ran, and that's basically an introduction to the Hive. But this Saturday, I actually got my first experience from being on the Hive, and I was very fortunate that literally the Saturday of the same week, Burnley under 21s were playing Newcastle under 21s, and James, the Academy Sports Psych, who's mentoring me, said I could come shadow him for the day, see a day in the life on his match day, which was very exciting. So I get to the training ground, and my mate Sid drops me off, and I get there and I'm just waiting for the bus to show up, and they arrive, and they're all coming off rushing a bit because they arrived a bit late. They had some issues with timings. James says, just give me 5 minutes, and then we go for a chat. He introduces me to the manager of the under 21s, Andy Farrell. Um, and then the assistant coach, Andy, introduced me to him. And he was like, you'll know who this is. Um, and I at first didn't recognise him. And then he goes Liverpool, and then the person who it was jokes and goes Real Madrid. And we're all laughing, and then Andy goes Stoke. And I saw the CA, and I was like, wow, it's Charlie Adams. Pleasure to meet you. I just didn't recognise him because I've not seen his face for so long. And I just remember the days from when he was playing. But that was just surreal. The fact that Charlie Adams was right in front of me. He's the assistant coach at the under 21s. And then the day goes on. James takes me outside. I'm witnessing the warm up. The only thing I ever actually did to help out was put some water and electrolytes in each corner of the pitch. Well, two of the corners, James did the other two. And then basically for the game, I was there behind the dugout with James, and what he's doing is he's essentially observing the coaches, the players, like behavioural responses, what they're saying, their communication, everything to do with sports psych. Basically, he's observing, and he'll take notes down, and he can even clip it with the performance analysis, and he can show the players the evidence of what he's saying, and it's really cool to actually see that in that sort of environment. Um, and it was also cool to then also see Andy and Charlie coaching, and the other staff like the performance analysis, goalkeeper, first aid, and physio and everything doing their job, and just seeing how it runs at that sort of level. And that was my first like flavour of that environment, that elite sort of level, and it was really cool to see. And what was quite nice as well is like I didn't get too much. We talk about imposter syndrome. I didn't get too much like, what am I doing here? I actually was more immersed in it, and I had a constant loop in my head of what Matthew McConaughey said of be less impressed and more involved. I was just trying my best to be that, and just not just listening to James, but also telling him what I think, which he was challenging me on as well. And then after the game, unfortunately, they lost 3-2. Played really well, to be honest. It was tough. Newcastle just had a certain quality where they didn't actually have many chances, but they scored the ones they had. Burnley were great, and they were 2-1 up as well, which is unfortunate. But then afterwards, we're in the staff room, and I'm just there with Charlie Adams and the other staff members, and they're talking about packets of crisps. and I wanted to get involved in the conversation, but like I was that stunned of where I was, I just couldn't speak. And I spoke to my dad afterwards, and he was like, probably for the best, instead of saying something stupid. And then I said my goodbye to James, expressed my gratitude, and they went off back to Burnley. But really cool experience, and that's definitely the best experience I've had yet with sports psych. Um, just because it's the first real taste of that environment and seeing what it's like at that culture. It's very exciting, and being around people like Charlie Adams and Andy, and because Andy played for Burnley as well. People who have been at that level. I'm really looking forward to meeting more people like that, and I hope I get to see those guys again and actually have a proper, maybe more connected conversation with them rather than just observing. But that's something which is there in the future. So this opportunity is one of those where it's what you put in, you get out. So I'm going to hope to do some more things with James along the line. But it's interesting because it made me want to ask you a question, and it was, have you ever been in an environment where you've been so stunned you can't speak? And that might be a bit of a specific example, but have you ever been in a setting, maybe you met someone when you were doing journalism, or when you've met like Michael Dawson, or just someone or a setting you've been in where you're just like so stunned by the fact you're there? Have you ever experienced that before?
Well, I'll send this to Michael because I've never been scared meeting that guy. He's so funny. Like me and him sat outside the City Ground once, just talking about the under-21s and just Forest for ages. And then someone pulled him and was like, "Where are you? You need to come on the thing." And, like he was meant to be on the telly, and he's like, "Oh shit, sorry, I gotta go." Like he's just such a personable guy. So shout out to you, Mr. Michael Dawson, you legend. Oh, I would say, I'd say meeting Martin Tyler was
That came to my mind. I thought you might
pretty
say that
big.
one.
And I was so nervous. And actually, I would end up becoming friends with the guy that took the photo, because of a Premier League launch that we did for the Man City Forest game, which we won last year.
Oh man, you know what? You're reminding me of stuff like that. This makes you realise, man. So some of the cool stuff that we've been experiencing, man. That Premier League thing you did was awesome, bro.
And that was all this year. We kind of forget
I
that
know.
sometimes. That was this year, and I remember this with Martin Tyler. And it was a year ago, a couple of weeks back. I'll never forget. I was sitting down just having some dinner, and there was a table free next to him, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's Martin Tyler." And he sat with Seb Hutchinson, who's one of the TNT guys, who's also brilliant. Really love his work. And I was like, "Fuck, I want to ask him for a photo, but like I can't." He's talking to all his people, and it's Martin Tyler. Like I can't just go and ask him for a photo. And that day, I had the ego was I was working with it, right? Like I knew I smelt good, I knew I looked good, and I thought, "Do you know what? I am meant to be here. So why not ask him for a photo or for a chat? Like at the end of the day, we're both here for work. So why shouldn't I? If someone else is gonna, I'm gonna do it." So I just went, "Oh, you know what? Fuck it." I was like, "Oh, excuse me. Do you mind if I just say you're, like a childhood hero? Like I've been listening to you for years." And I kind of got talking, and he's like, "Oh, what do you do here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm here with Hospital Radio." And he says, "Oh, that's how all of us start. Do you know what I mean? And it's good that you're on this journey." And I'm like, "Holy shit! Like, there's no way. Like, I used to fucking play FIFA and listen to you. You know what I mean?" And I was just like, wow. I was just like, asking him like, how did you get into it? And he's like, "Oh, this, and this." And I got talking to Seb, who he was with as well, and we were just talking about the football and how modern football is and how he's getting on, obviously, now that he doesn't commentate for Sky anymore and he's been replaced by Peter Drury. And it was just amazing. He was just such a good guy. And at the end, I was like, "Do you mind if we get a photo?" And the poor guy who he's a floor manager for Forest, but I had no idea at this point how important he was. I was like, "Can you just take a photo for me of me and Martin Tyler and Seb Hutchinson?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." But he was eating his dinner. It was a bit rude of me, to be honest, but I could not miss the opportunity. But that was one of those times when I was just like, there is no way that I am, just there. And then other than that, I would probably say when I met Mikel Arteta, like really briefly, that was weird. Like that was crazy because we just beaten Arsenal. to stay in the Prem, and I was like, I really want a photo, but I thought it's disrespectful. He's just lost the Premier League, like he's going to be pretty angry. So I just shook his hand and was like, all the best for everything. And then we had like an awkward like half hug, and I was just so like speechless because I was like, did that just fucking happen? Like, what do you mean? But yeah, I would say that those two would be mine, and I think that the thing about being speechless is that it's like people don't realize how much someone will take that as a compliment. Because, naturally, your first thought is, God, if someone sees that I'm nervous in front of them, they're going to be like, look at this absolute idiot. Oh, look at him. He's all trembling in front of me. Whereas these guys, like, they take it as a real compliment. They're like, thank you so much. Like, they probably get it all the time, but it still means a lot, like the first time someone complimented them, And me and you, Dan, we're not quite at that level of greatness yet where people come up to us going, making a podcast. Oh my God, I saw one of your stickers in Newcastle. I'm a big fan. It's nothing like that. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to be a fan, to be in awe of someone's work is such a privilege. I'm so lucky to live in a world where I can not only admire the work of Martin Tyler, but I can actually have the opportunity to meet him. And
Yeah,
I think that's
those
the same
moments
for you.
are, yeah, that moment on Saturday and those moments for you are things I'd love to look back on and be able to speak about from the beginning of my journey. And I want to be able to get to a position where those environments are my usual day to day, and I can look back and laugh at the fact that they were once something I was speechless in. But I think it's really cool, man. It makes you think about a question I want to ask you. I know we spoke about it in the pre-chat. Gotta love the pre-chat, man. Maybe one day we'll do a pre-chat pod, a little pre-chat exclusive.
You would have got some good football chat.
But I think it's very easy to kind of get ahead of yourself and forget how far you've come sometimes. And I think it's good to give yourself kudos and to praise yourself. And we speak about ego, but I think it's good to back yourself within the inside and really reflect on how far you've come. And I look at, if we was to go to a year ago today, in fact, I think you were in Newcastle around a year ago today.
Yeah.
A year ago sometime this time. But what are you most proud of in the last year, from what you've accomplished, but also just to make you who you are now today? What are you most proud of from the last year, man?
Moving here, bro, is still the proudest moment because despite the challenges, and believe me that they are challenging, our situation's a little bit difficult at the moment. I would say that other than the move, will probably be the Premier League day. I loved that. Being able to go in the changing rooms of my club, to be able to go and walk on the pitch at my club, to go and meet the staff at my club. That's what life is all about. I love football, and to have the opportunity to call a result correctly as well on the dot about my football club fills me with great privilege. So, yeah, I would say the Premier League launch, bro. That was just probably one of the best days.
What was
And
the
it
score
kind of also
prediction
made
again?
1-0.
Against City?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was good.
Was it Hudson-Odoi that scored as well? I think it was Hudson-Odoi that scored.
Yeah, it
It was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, always scores in big games. But, like I say, that was when I realised that sometimes when you do something for so long that you love, you feel like that's your ceiling. It's only when the opportunity comes do you realise how much you can actually achieve. And that's not to say don't be grateful for your current situation. That's just to say if you stay consistent, there's always another step up to doing the things that you love. How about you, bro? What would you say is your most proudest moment?
I think over the last year, I think what I'm most proud of is I feel like the things I've always wanted to do and like the things I've always wanted to push myself in, I'm and actually seeing myself do now. So having a podcast with you, doing something creative like that, where we're consistent as well, and putting something out there, like my videos, putting them out there. Um, Trying to start my YouTube back up again, but in like a more professional way. Doing the football coaching stuff, which is something I never actually kind of imagined, but I'm doing it. And the sports psychology journey I'm on, like, what happened Saturday is just incredible. And I'm just proud of myself for, I feel like I'm doing the things I want to be doing. And I'm trying my best to make a life and make something out of those things. Because like my granddad Ron said to me, you're richer than anyone if you enjoy what you do every day. And I want to keep doing these things. And like with the marathon running as well, like it was always maybe like a small little thing I might do, like a dream of like, oh, I might doing a marathon, and then you actually do it, and it's like, I think just these things I've actually been pushing myself. And I feel like when I was younger, especially starting uni and being at sixth form, I felt I was kind of holding myself back a little bit by not doing these things, not putting myself out there as much because I was worried about what people would think. I was still in that sort of teenager sort of mindset of like going out and doing things like that instead. And I just feel like I'm realizing now that the things I really enjoy in life are my passions, and that's what drives my purpose. That's what drives me, and I don't want to spend time doing anything else. And it's just, I'm proud to see myself doing these things now. And like we say, I don't want to kind of forget that I'm doing them.
Mm.
And it's just awesome. And I just want to keep taking it to the next level and keep pushing and keep enjoying it. And the one I actually asked myself the question today, because today I went to watch a Sunday League game. I've not told you this yet. It's quite funny because the manager's like a player manager. His name's Liam. He seemed like a great bloke, and he was getting him on the pitch and he was getting involved. But someone I might come play for. But just going on a bus journey, you go out there. It was like half an hour bus journey, and on the way back I was kind of reflecting. I was like, okay, if I want to join this Sunday League team, why do I want to join it? Because I just want to enjoy football, and I want to put myself in a position where if I'm coaching it, I want to also be playing it as well. And then I sort of asked myself, okay, why am I doing everything else? And the one word I always kind of relay back onto is impact. I want to make impact on people, and through stuff like this, through the videos, through the job I want to have. And I just feel like I love trying to help other people become better, and that's something I feel like I'm doing with all this stuff. And it's just really exciting. I feel like the things that excite me, I'm doing, and that's what I'm proud of. What's the best piece of advice you feel you've ever been given, Jamie?
I've always said
And
to
for
you
the
that I
listener,
want to.
have a think about this yourself as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I always remember the small things people say to me. So, when someone says something to me, often they think that it's a pass away comment that I'll never remember. But I often do, good or bad. I've always mentioned it, but my teacher, her name was Miss Beard, Nicola, as I now know her, or Nick. She said to my mum, make sure that Jamie just picks his friends wisely.
Yeah, you've said this a
And that
couple of times.
I've said it a few
This is
times,
a
but it's so important because throughout school, I just thought it means picking your friends so that you don't get in trouble. Don't pick friends that stay out after the lights go off, and or the lights go on, and like break the rules that the parents have told them. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't hang around with those kind of kids. Like,
Stop right there. This is Daniel talking here, and I know right now you're enjoying the episode, but I've just got to give a really big shout out to something, and it's Making It Moments. That's where our guests are. That's where the people we bring on to talk about their journeys are. Go and listen to Making It Moments. Go find them on our Spotify and YouTube. Find clips on our socials. Making It Poddy, Making It Moments.
but actually, I realise as I'm getting older, it applies in a lot of ways. Pick your friends wisely because it can change your life. It's not just negatives that you're trying to avoid; it's the positives you're trying to reach. So yeah, I'd say pick your friends wisely. Learn to care less. Sounds like a weird one, but I'm someone that likes to care a lot. you know, and when I'm investing in something and someone, I invest hard, which is good, and it's bad because when things don't go well, it hurts you. So try and think of another one.
No, you don't have to. That's a good
But
piece
you know
of
what?
advice.
I'll say one that my dad's always given me, actually. I will just say, and I never thought I'd be saying a piece of advice that my dad gave me that I'd be like championing, but he used to say to me, I'd be like, I can't do it, Dad. And he's like, never say can't. It's not a word. He'd always say that to me. And it was usually football related. But I'd always be like, I can't do it, Dad. We played chess. Like when I was younger, that was like one thing he wanted me to be good at. It's football and chess. And we'd be playing and I'd be like, I can't work it out. And he's like, you can. It's not a word. You know, just little things like that. That they've always stuck with me a lot. So but yeah, there's a couple from me.
I think it's interesting because I think it's quite hard to actually pinpoint the best piece of advice. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I've received a lot of good advice. And, you know, especially from people like my mum and dad, I always feel like the advice they give me, because they obviously know me so well, is always the best advice. But something which I think has made a most recent impact on me, and something I've been driving a lot with, which is literally what I just spoke about, funny enough, before asking you that question, is the reason why. And it was Anthony Taylor who made me aware of that idea, and also Christopher Kirkland, and just having a why behind things. Like, and it's something I never thought of, but when they mentioned it, it's like it's never left me since that. Since I had a phone call with Anthony, it's ever since then when he said that, it's never left me. Um, and then I read that book that my mum gave me, Start With Why, Simon Sinek, which I know you read a bit of, and
Oh
like
yeah.
you realise just how important it is. And my friend Riley once said he liked the idea of it when he first heard me say it. And I just think it's with everything we do in life, you need something to be driving it, even when it gets as low as it can possibly go. What's keeping it going at least a little bit? Even if you're on your last legs, what's keeping you crawling? And I just think if you know why you're doing something, you know the purpose, you know the impact it's having, you actually can't stop. And that word, which your dad says, you actually can't, that word isn't a word when you've got a reason why. Can't isn't a word when you've got a reason why. And I think it's just so powerful. And it, for me, I've realised just how much it drives me. It's like when I was studying at sixth form, it's like I'm doing a hard maths question. And it's like back then I didn't know why I was doing it. And it's like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, why am I testing myself with this? Whereas now it's like with anything I'm challenged by, it's like, I know why I'm doing this. I know where I want it to take me. So I think for me, it's just that piece of advice has been great. But something my dad said to me over summer also was really good on a more personal level. And it was, you can't expect other people to be like you. You can't expect other people to behave like you. And I think a lot of people could take a leaf from that, because we need to be open minded and understand that if I was you, I would do exactly what you've just done in a situation, because that's how you've grown up. That's everything you've seen. That's your experience. And I just think it's important to understand that people aren't going to live life the same way you do, and they're not going to behave the same way you do. I think that's very important to understand. But coming towards the end of this podcast, I think I've just got to make sure I give a shout out to our most recent Making It Moments episode that's come out. Daniel Inditer, very smart lad. Got a very interesting business idea. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, so go check out that episode. Making It as an Entrepreneur, Daniel Inditer. It's very exciting what he's doing. But Jamie, man, absolutely brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love what we spoke about today.
Bro, I love it always. And I just want to say as well, man, it's always a pleasure and a privilege. And the Making It podcast has helped me, you know, just through a lot of difficult times. I just want to say as well, I actually had my first therapy session this week. And I don't know when the next one's going to be, but it did open my eyes up to a lot of things. And one thing I kind of wanted to leave with, because I don't know if any of you struggle with anxiety. I mean, I definitely do. And the therapist said to me, and I was really weirded out at first. He was like, "What's the difference between anxiety and excitement? Because you do know they're pretty much the same feeling." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" Like at first I was like, don't try and do all this edgy stuff with me. Like this isn't how I want therapy to be done. I just want you to tell me that I'm a nut job and how you're going to fix it. No, I'm joking. But I just want you to tell me like what's going on. And he went, no, because anxiety is the fear of something bad happening, right? And excitement is looking forward to something exciting happening. And in a way, they're both kind of the same thing, and they can work for and against you. And, you know, worrying that something bad might happen isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you can't be excited about everything. And we were just kind of talking about the anxiety topic, and I thought that's a really interesting way of looking at how anxiety and excitement are almost the same kind of feeling. But I just kind of wanted to share that through the Making It podcast, I've been way more in tune with my feelings, who I am, and what I'd like to achieve. But also the fact that I also am a human being who has a few problems, and I would like to get them fixed. So I would like to just say that, you know, if you're in a similar boat to me and maybe you don't want to come on the podcast and talk about it, but you want to get some help, I recommend therapy all day. But other than that, I just want to say thank you, Dan, again for another great episode. 45 episodes in. We're almost on season 2, 2026. So keep watching, keep listening. And like I say, keep listening to Making It Moments, because you are not going to want to miss this most recent episode, because this guy is talented. And that's what we love to showcase on Making It. So thank you very much. Have a great week. And we'll see you every Tuesday at 10 in the morning. Ciao.
Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Feel so right.